Welcome to the Gentleman's Tribe Show, where Brotherhood meets bold truth and we strip off the masks to speak into real challenges men face in business, in fatherhood, in faith, and in the fire of daily life. This isn't a podcast for surface talk. This is a sacred space for men building something real on the outside and from within. Whether you're leading in the boardroom, showing up at home, or standing at the edge between breaking and becoming, this tribe is for you. Gentlemen, welcome to the Gentleman's Tribe Show, where Brotherhood meets hardcore reality, where we discuss topics that affect men. We pull our masks off, we get to the core, and we discuss the fire that we must walk. Whether it is family, whether it is business, whether it's spirituality, or just leveling up, this is the show for you. I'm your host, Bryan Docobo. I'm a father, I'm a fighter, I'm a Florida-based attorney, and I'm always looking how to find ways to love better. And tonight we're diving into a topic that we're going to get to much more detail later. Whether you're 19, whether you're 90, it affects us all. And that's relationships, not just with anybody, but with the person you choose to do life with, a significant other. But this time, from a man's perspective, we've heard many women's perspective, but now it's time for us to be real, to be present with a modern masculinity that encompasses emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and leadership. And today I want to introduce to you my co-hosts, Mr. Ian Miller and Mr. Pedro Ramos. So today is a special day. This is the first show of many where we go deep into topics. And today we're discussing relationships. But before we get into that, let's take the opportunity to discuss what exactly is the show about? Why do we do this? What is our call to be here today and in the many days going forward? And I guess I'm going to kind of open up that question. Ian, would you like to take that first? Then we'll talk to Pedro.
Sure. Well, the big why, of course. We want to be here to be real, to let people know what we're dealing with in our lives, and to shed some light, some insight, and see what you can learn.
Gentleman's Tribe to me is a place where you can finally be around men who are going through some similar things that you are, and just really get to that tribal mentality as far as tackling life and get perspective from other men that value you and then understand that you value yourself as well.
And tell me, this show that we see here today was actually born out of a group. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, we're an organization that meets routinely. We get together once a month, each individual chapter, and we focus on issues that are real of the day. Things that require you to self-reflect and recognize there's room for growth in every one of our lives, and an area where we can support one another and help guide each other down the journey we're all on.
Yeah, look, life is tough, and it's only going to get tougher and more interesting. So being around men that you value their opinion and want to learn from, because listen, in life, you're always looking to learn. It is not linear. There's ups and downs. So the more you can be knowledgeable about this game of life, the better you can win at it.
I see you both, and as I'm well aware, we are all highly involved with the Gentleman's Tribe as a group, as an organization, and now as a show. But tell us a little bit about yourself personally, walking into this space, Ian.
So it's an interesting concept here. Personally, for me, I have been doing networking for years. A lot of times it's focused on business, but there's so much more to life than business. As a man, you got to focus on other areas of your life. How am I showing up in my marriage? How am I showing up with my children? How am I showing up as an employer to my employees? And how am I showing up for myself? How am I working on my own growth and development? And that's really what the tribe's all about. All these aspects of your masculinity, of you as a man, how you can focus on really self-improving in each of them.
And Pedro.
So a long history in healthcare, working with large organizations, managing teams of physicians, negotiating contracts. And I've learned that when it comes to your healthcare, your emotional, physical wellness, you have to be the person responsible for that. So my role within Gentleman's Tribe is to have men really look within themselves from a holistic standpoint and figure out, what does this life look like for them? So I'm a transformational coach, concierge, one-on-one personal coaching, where we tackle really significant issues. And it's really important and valuable for men to understand that whatever you're going through, you don't have to take it upon yourself. You can find other men that really have walked that path before and can share those experiences.
Excellent. And I asked this question by design because right now in this moment, you're showing your personal value of what you bring to the collective. And this is something that we feel strongly has been lost to time. There was times where we lived in tribes, where we lived in communities, where there was more that connective tissue of bringing everybody up. And how can we go from a modern way of living, a modern suburbia where things seems disconnected and disjointed, and getting back to our roots, a remembering of who we are as a people? And I believe that this is a big part of it. So this is a very wonderful mission, and that obviously I believe fully in, and that we're all here because of this reason. So Gentlemen's Tribe, it's a modern tribe for the modern man, for the modern world. And right now we are going to take a break and go to a commercial. And when we come back, we're going to introduce two other brothers that have great value, that have their own personal abilities that attribute to the collective. And there's much to be learned from them. We're excited about it. We'll see you right after this.
The Law Office of Bryan F. Docobo, PA, is a Florida-based legal firm that partners with individuals, investors, and business owners to help them navigate real estate deals, business transactions, and the sale or acquisition of high-value assets like yachts and aircraft. We offer strategic legal support at every stage, whether you're closing on a property, negotiating a merger, or scaling your company. For growing businesses, we also provide fractional general counsel services, giving you executive-level legal guidance without the cost of a full-time in-house attorney. Through our title and closing division, Esquire Closings, we handle real estate transactions across Florida, delivering a smooth, attorney-led experience from contract to close. We're here to make your big moves feel simple, secure, and smart.
At Miller Trial Law, we're more than just a personal injury law firm. We're your advocates during one of the most difficult times in your life. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, a slip and fall, at work, or due to medical malpractice, we're here to stand by your side. We handle the insurance claims and legal process so you can focus on healing. From coordinating your medical care to fighting for the compensation you deserve, we're with you every step of the way. Because your recovery is personal to us. If you've been injured, contact us at 833-MT-LAW for you.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories, struggles, and awakenings that shape us, side by side with men who refuse to settle, who are willing to feel, to lead, and to rise.
Gentlemen, welcome back. And now continuing, we have a chance to introduce two of our wonderful brothers here, Mr. Dennis Feldman and Leor Menelis.
Yes.
Boom, I hit it. All right, awesome. So anyhow, these two brothers have been with us for a couple of years now, and we've had a chance to grow together and do life together. So I tell you, before we jump into the topic today, Leor, tell us a little bit about yourself and what the tribe means to you.
41-year-old husband, father of beautiful girl twins, identical girls. Moved from South Africa through to the United States. Couldn't have done a better transition. And while doing that, I came across through a group colleague, the Gentleman's Tribe, which to me gave me the ability to not feel alone. A lot of people find that they're thinking they're in a situation that no one's ever been in or cannot relate, only for other men to relate themselves. And it just gives us comfort that you're not alone as a man, as a husband, as a businessman.
Well, I guess it's off track a little bit. I have to ask this question. Why do you feel men struggle opening up like we were able to do in the tribe? Why do we think that that's a thing? What was difficult for you to open up before coming to our circle?
Men are men. They're old school. They're the pillar. They're supposed to be the hard ass guys who don't cry, who just hustle on and make things happen. They don't share emotion. I think as time goes by, it's all too natural to share emotion. It's all too natural to lean on somebody else for help. And the stereotypical man, as we all should or know it, is somebody who doesn't rely on help. And I think that should be changed.
Very cool. I tell you what, I was going to say a joke like, oh, that's not a New York accent, but then you beat me to it. You told everybody where you're from. But we are, look, here at the Tribe, it's about having diversity of experiences, diversity of age, diversity of life, because the unique perspectives of everyone add to the collective consciousness. And I think that's a perfect segue into a man that is wise, that brings presence, that is the sage of knowledge within the room. And I'm so proud that he was here to be here on our very first show, and that's Mr. Dennis Feldman.
Can you imagine that? It's really, really an honor, and I thank you, Bryan, for picking up the phone and reaching out to me. Gentlemen's Tribe was a outgrowth of a concept that was way overdue. I and yourself, Pedro, and a couple of other individuals decided that it was time to move up in life, the universe, and everything. And you formed an organization that has tremendous potential and will grow exponentially over the next couple of years. Your aspirations really touch me. And for me, it's always important to be a part of a thought process that embodies altruism, goals, values, integrity, all features of life that you don't encounter on a normal basis every day, every hour, onward and ongoing. So it's really, really exceptional to be able to be down here. I'm here 11 years, came down from Long Island, New York, and find a group that is so plugged into values that mean something.
And I tell you what, I'm going to take that compliment with full heart. I have a tremendous amount of respect from you, and that compliment coming from you and what our group is designed to accomplish means the absolute world. I tell you what, on a personal note, you want to speak a little bit about who you are in business here in South Florida?
Sure. For the last 41 years, I've been involved in commercial real estate. I've been a consultative service provider to business owners looking to acquire real estate facilities for the purpose of running their business and also gaining financial benefits from the opportunity of ownership. Equity ownership in real estate, especially these days, is probably one of the most significant opportunities available in a very, very challenging economic climate.
And I've got a chance to see you work. And seeing you work is you take things that are very complex to people and simplify them in the journey. And I've seen you work wonderful things with your clients. And now, of course, probably the least complicated thing that we've ever had to deal with, because it's so effortless, is relationships with women. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Am I right? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. No. It's funny. I think that the relationships in life is something Leora was speaking to, was that as men, we have to show up. You know, maybe we can't show that vulnerability around others that are relying upon us, that are going to feed off our energy, and we have to be there for them. And maintaining those relationships could be challenging, to say the least, at times. We've had men in our group, in our tribe, that have gone through divorces, several divorces. Others that have found a path away from a relationship and then were called to come back to it, healed it, and grew it for the betterment of that man's particular journey. So today we're focused on these specific types of relationships, the relationships with our significant others, and what that journey has been like in our experience. And I think to open the floor, I'm going to ask a question. We'll kind of do a roundtable topic, and it's kind of a surprise. So I'd like to drop a little, curveball, as Freddie likes to say on the other shows. Relationships. If you could think of one word that comes to mind when you think of relationships, tell me what that is and why you think that is. And I guess we'll probably go around this way. We'll start over here with Pedro, and we'll work our way around the room. Pedro, talk to me, my man.
Before I give my answer, I just need to emphasize how amazing it is on our first show to have two class acts like Leora and Dennis beyond. They just exemplify what Gentlemen's Tribe is all about. And for those listeners that are tuning into the show, if you had any clue as far as who we are, both these gentlemen just really nailed it. Pardon me. So back to the question at hand, I struggled with my answer. And I'd say that for me, when it comes to relationship, it comes down to connection. You just know that with that particular person, there's things that are going on at a chemical level that you can't explain that just make it work. And that connection, when it's good, it's amazing. And when it works, there's nothing better to it. But if you don't have that real connection, that's where you see things sort of erode. And we'll get into the bad and the ugly as far as and I'm sure we all have some fascinating stories about that. But to me, to answer your question directly, Bryan, it's connection.
Yeah, connection. Excellent. How about you?
I'm going with love. Love is the foundation.
It's a great answer. And why do you think, a little more detail, why do you think that word kind of resonates with you?
So I think it all begins with love. Without love, what is the relationship?
Yeah, exactly. Dennis Feldman.
Word that comes to my mind is compassion and empathy.
That's right. Lior.
One word is difficult, but I'm going to go with responsibility.
No, difficult came to you. This is a place where brotherhood meets bold reality.
Yeah.
Okay. And the thing is this is an opportunity. So difficult.
All right.
Tell me about
so let me step back to what my initial single word was difficult.
All right.
Right. Without judgment, it's difficult because it is a relationship, but it also is you need to be treated as a business. It needs effort every single day. And not just a little bit, a lot of it.
Well, I think what I'm hearing is maybe it's partnership.
100% it is. It takes two to tango. I'd say it's still difficult.
Well, partnerships aren't always easy, my friend. So I love that. And I think that's it's almost I was struggling this because you guys took a lot of my words, quite frankly. Going last is kind of a difficult part here. But I think it's also surprise. Because there's surprise in negative ways, surprise in good ways. We'll get into more detail, kind of what I mean by that. But when you meet somebody and the relationship begins, as life goes on, everyone's evolving as people. And I know people that have come to me and say, I'm the same guy I was in high school. Well, if you're the same guy you were in high school, you're missing the boat. Because the thing is it's time to evolve, it's time to level up and grow in a certain way. Now, growth, if unkept, could grow into chaos. But if it's trimmed to grow the right path and you're in a healthy way, the reason I use the word surprise is because maybe something's brought to you that you didn't expect the other person in a very wonderful way, whether it's spirituality, whether it's a deeper love, whether even it's a business opportunity or something in their personality that surprises you in a profound, wonderful way. I'm going to go with the word surprise. That's my word for today. Okay? All right. Ready to get into the good stuff? And I'm sure Leor's got a bunch of good stuff, and I think Dennis has got a few stories too. So the topic today is not just relationships, but it's like that old Western film. It's the good, it's the bad, and it's the ugly. And the good is, what are things, and I guess it's a good thing. This is just an open format here. Whoever wants to chime in. Let's talk about the good of relationships. What do I mean by this? It means, what are ways that you've grown? What is the love that's given to you? What has it did you discover something within yourself in a relationship that you could remember that provided a deeper meaning to yourself? So I think the first question I'm going to ask the group, does anyone here have a story they want to share about a relationship where they found some sort of beauty or deep meaning within that relationship?
I don't mind going first. And I'm going to look right at the camera here and say that the good, the bad, and the ugly relationships, I had the largest role to play in those, right? And I'm going to take ownership, because if you are in a good relationship, a bad one, or an ugly one, you have to ask yourself, what did you do to contribute to those things? So I don't know if there'll probably some stories that'll surface that, will feel traumatic probably going through them again, but I don't mind mentioning around the good right now is that to be good, I think you have to be super intentional. You have to be present. You have to be aligned with that person at a deep level. And that takes work, right? It is difficult. it is often a surprise. It is based on love.
Sure.
There's a lot of empathy wrapped up in there and a lot of compassion. So, but all of that, you have to be present to feel all of those emotions. You have to be aware that if this relationship is worth working for and working towards, you have to be focused on that. And you have to be present.
Very good. Anybody else want to chime in?
I'll before I cut you off, I'll chime in a little bit. You said there's the good, the bad, or the ugly. I think you get good relationships. I think you get bad relationships, and most certainly ugly relationships. I think a good relationship probably entails all three to a degree. There is no such thing as a perfect relationship.
No, there is not.
In my view, a perfect relationship would then mean it's a good one. It might still be good, but there are ways of disagreements, a fight, and that's a healthy relationship. At least in my experience. I think every relationship has an element of good, bad, and ugly. It's just what is the ratio of each one as to where it's leaning towards.
Sure. That's right. And I think, and if we're going to get into some of the bad and some of the ugly, we're going to have some fun conversations there. But I think for myself, I think that the good. I think something that I was left with actually not too long ago, and this is why I use the word surprise. I've been with my wife for, and time flies, 10 years. Hopefully she's not watching. I know it's 10 years. Anyway. All right. But we were together even before then. And seeing her evolve as a person led to a lot of surprise. And she's actually brought to me a sense of spirituality. I think something that I struggled with that I'm owning right now, that I'm working on, is that I know how to lead with love and give all of myself. But the question is also this: have I really been receiving love? Have I been really receiving love from this person that has spent 10, 20 years with me and other people around me? Or is there always kind of a barrier, and was I just performing like I received love? Or was I truly authentically receiving it? And that's something that I feel that recently, through some of our trials, that is now finally broken me. I'm starting to kind of receive it. Does that resonate with anybody? You know, as far as the ability to receive love?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole foundation of love, one of my favorite authors, Eckhart Tolle, said love is to recognize yourself in another. And I think your relationship with yourself, your willingness to love yourself, is really what's going to form that foundation of your ability to be able to by love by someone else. If you're not open to accepting love, certainly it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, and I think that the saying goes, if how can you love somebody else if you don't love yourself?
Yeah.
I think, Bryan, that respect is important in a relationship. I've been in numerous relationships throughout my life, and if respect breaks down between two partners in a relationship, once it breaks down, it's very, very difficult to repair and almost impossible to replace. Having the ability to respect your partner, love is obviously a component, and at a certain point in life, the meaning of love changes, it evolves, it grows, but respect of the individual with whom you're a partner has to also evolve, and it has to evolve. If it doesn't evolve, it creates a chasm between the two partners. And that's happened to me. And when it does happen, I've always found it almost insurmountable to repair.
And I think that's a perfect segue into the bad. Because what you just described is a corrosive effect where it goes from the good and then things start happening. And maybe it's not even one profound event, but it's a pervasive breakdown, whether it's in communication, whether it's respect, whether it's all these things that ends up leading to the bad. So I think that, I guess the question now would be this. Looking back, because sometimes when you're in the moment, you don't realize what's happening. But looking back, can anybody speak to maybe an experience or share a story in a relationship that they've had where looking back, you realize, that's something I wish I picked up on and kind of corrected the ship before we led to a bad, even ugly output? Does anybody have a story they'd like to share in that regard?
How much time do we have?
Great question.
That's a great question.
So I'll say this, as someone that is a product of a bad relationship, my parents were not the poster children of what a happy marriage was supposed to look like. And I think I inherited a lot of that as I sort of grew into being the person that I am. And in a relationship that I was in that produced two amazing, beautiful kids, there were times in that relationship that I saw patterns of my father and how he was towards my mom that I certainly relived. And I was aware of it. And that was a time to maybe invest in knowing myself a little bit more, or invest in communicating more with my partner at the time. But it was palpable, it was real. So it was bad and beautiful in many ways. Back to your point, it was difficult. And relationships are so complex. But the important thing is recognizing when things are bad, maybe a little bit earlier on in the process, and being true to yourself and being like, if I'm going to go down this path, is this really going to end well? And typically that little voice inside of us is always right. Sometimes listening to that voice really is really key.
And I think that we're talking about Eckhart Tolle, it's almost like the voice behind that voice. And what you're speaking to is, so we got to own it, right? We're pulling off the mask. Anybody that walks this planet says, I've been perfect in every relationship and there's always somebody else, guess what? You're never going to grow. You're never going to level up, because to thyself be true. And there was a relationship, high school sweetheart, ended with college. I'm a young man, going through, the learning curve of relationships. And I think that look, she wasn't innocent either, but the reality is that I started speaking from moments that I was angry, and I got sick of apologizing. And I kind of realized something. He said, let me tell you something. Every mistake I made in my life, every mistake, I was either drunk or I was angry. That's it. And the thing is, I believe that anger is a temporary form of insanity. Because if you're able to emotionally regulate, get back to center, what is that voice behind that voice? What is that voice behind that anger, that human emotion? And that's the one that eventually is going to come to the surface after the anger subsides and the trail of damage is left. So I think that we're going to get to this a little bit later on, but that was a necessary step in my evolution, that particular lesson. So I think that led to a decay where I could have had an opportunity in hindsight to grow and stabilize the ship in a positive direction. My reactionary instead of responding to things created more damage. That was my personal experience. And
like Pedro, I have two beautiful children from a prior marriage. I had to go through divorce. And I think a lot of what you learn in the process is, one, you got to be present when things are going wrong. You can't have your mind thinking about the things of the past, worries of the future. You got to be present and recognize that allowing that anger to build inside you, you're really punishing yourself and you're showing your worst colors. Things don't generally go well when you get angry. So the key is to learn to be calm, be present, and recognize that, so that you can try to find a solution and see if there's a repair to be had, if respect can still be there. Once the respect's gone, the love's gone with it, things tend to go down real quickly.
got it.
Yeah, but
It's difficult in any manner, shape, or form to be consistent in a relationship. What's needed from the standpoint of the male is respect and appreciation and acknowledgement. I was in a 28-year marriage. It ended up in a very, very vile resolution. I never heard the word "I'm sorry" once in 28 years. It's hard to believe that somebody could be so infallible for that length of time. It built up a tremendous amount of hostility because that perfect individual could never accommodate me in a way that I needed to be accommodated. As a result of that, I got to a point where I self-medicated. And the self-medication was a mechanism that I used to blot out the abuse and the lack of appreciation. So I think it's important. Clearly, I've overcome that dependence and I function quite well right now. However, without appreciation, without some form of empathy, as I used that word earlier, some form of acknowledgement of responsibility on both sides of the partnership, it's very, very difficult to guarantee success over a long period of time. And I waited 28 years for that to occur.
And you're actually touching on something because, I'm not sure if you guys had this experience. I'm kidding. I know you absolutely have. You ever start dating somebody and then a certain point in time, it kind of hits you. What did I get myself into?
Be careful what you wish for.
Because,
be careful what you wish for.
Right. And it's almost wondering, something you're touching on, Dennis, which might be a great show for another time, was, without naming names, is anybody in a relationship maybe that they might suspect there's a slight personality disorder, or we have a commercial break. We got to pay for the show. So
we'll get into the ugly.
Pie on my face. We'll get better next time. Commercial, here you come.
The law office of Bryan Docobo, PA, is a Florida-based legal firm that partners with individuals, investors, and business owners to help them navigate real estate deals, business transactions, and the sale or acquisition of high-value assets like yachts and aircraft. We offer strategic legal support at every stage, whether you're closing on a property, negotiating a merger, or scaling your company. For growing businesses, we also provide fractional general counsel services, giving you executive-level legal guidance without the cost of a full-time in-house attorney. Through our title and closing division, Esquire Closings, we handle real estate transactions across Florida, delivering a smooth, attorney-led experience from contract to close. We're here to make your big moves feel simple, secure, and smart.
At Miller Trial Law, we're more than just a personal injury law firm. We're your advocates during one of the most difficult times in your life. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, a slip and fall, at work, or due to medical malpractice, we're here to stand by your side. We handle the insurance claims and legal process so you can focus on healing. From coordinating your medical care to fighting for the compensation you deserve, we're with you every step of the way. Because your recovery is personal to us. If you've been injured, contact us at 833-MT-LAW for you.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories, struggles, and awakenings that shape us, side by side with men who refuse to settle, who are willing to feel, to lead, and to rise.
And tribe, we are back. All right, coming back to the circle. All right, we're going to pick up a little bit about where we left off because I think that it's just too important of a topic that maybe we should touch on a little bit here and then maybe go do a deeper dive on another conversation. But as we heard from Dennis and sharing a story where he was with somebody for a significant amount of years, and throughout that process, never heard the words "I'm sorry." Maybe kind of presented in a way where it sounded like a difficult thing that he found his way out of. So I guess the question I would have is, as we're going through the bad could be something that some situations, because people are different, relationships are different, that could be corrected through certain strategies, okay? And then maybe there's sometimes where you say, it's just not going to work, and through my own personal boundary and my own self-respect, I must kind of step away from it. Does anybody have a thought about identifying about what situation you may be in with something being able to be corrected or something where this is a hard no and I got to find an exit strategy? Does anybody have an opinion about that?
I think once the respect's been lost, at that point, there's very little you can do. Yes, you can try counseling or therapy, but generally once you've lost respect, for me, that was a hard no. That's when it was time to move on. I realized there was nothing more to grow from this. I wasn't going to get the things I needed out of the relationship. And I don't think my ex-wife either, in her case, was going to get what she needed. Sometimes it's just best to recognize what's best for yourself is to move on, but for both people and even for the children.
Yeah, it's very good. I think also is in making that determination, clearly there's times we have to set the boundary. But one principle that I think is important is seeking to understand. Now, seeking to understand doesn't mean that I'm condoning someone's behavior or I adopt that person's position, but understanding how that output can happen. So I've been in relationships where seeking to understand, let me path where this person even has a personality disorder and I can't be with them and I got to exit the position. But seeking to understand, you might start understanding maybe things that you could do better or kind of understanding the other person. Has anyone here had a situation where they sought to understand, took pause and said, you know what? Maybe come to epiphany, a way to kind of right the ship instead of backing off from it? In any relationships you may have had?
From my end, what the other gentlemen think.
Yeah.
I think going back to the theme, the good, bad, and the ugly, has a lot to do with the person's maturity as well. If I go back to my youth, I was dating a girl. She was nothing but toxic. That falls right into the funnel of bad.
What kept you with her? I'm just kidding. Don't go there.
We can go there.
We can go there.
I am the furthest person away from substance abuse.
Right.
She was using it regularly.
Okay.
I stayed. Maturity level on my end to accept that. With her change of personality because of said substances, fighting it daily, toxicity, not good for my aura, not good for hers, but I stayed. I think at that time, it was the maturity side of me as a man saying, I don't want to be lonely. I get to be with someone. As you grow older, you understand that that person is not your only choice. I wholeheartedly believe that there's a soulmate, but not one of them. You just get a connection with a person. So that good and bad and ugly is determined by yourself as to what is bad, good, or ugly. I probably have some bad traits too that my wife says I'm toxic in degree. And again, going back to what I said, a good relationship is having all three. But that's just my what I wanted to bring across is that I think a lot of it has to do with the person's maturity on both ends. But they need to gel and mature.
That speaks a lot because especially when you're younger, and everyone's going through this learning process. And I give grace to even in relationships where I feel like the woman has wronged me because they're going through their own journey and their own evolution. There's women that I've dated when I was younger that the maturity wasn't there, but I'm sure they evolved to be beautiful mothers and beautiful spouses and are living that life because they were on a whole growth journey there as well. And I think also a good question here, because this kind of relates to both the good and the bad, kind of where we're at. Is anybody familiar with the love languages? Is anybody familiar with their framework? Does anybody kind of know it off the top of their head or have some of them that I want to speak to about?
I know mine is acts of service.
Acts of service.
So acts of service is the one that I kind of feel like, all right, if you love me, you got to show me you love me by doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, what is it? Gifts, words of affection,
words of affirmation.
Affirmation. Right.
Physical touch.
Yeah, look, I'm using Google. It's words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, receiving gifts, and physical touch.
Yes.
When you guys hear that, what do you think of, and how does that kind of relate in your experience in relationships from that framework?
I think it comes down to what you're looking for in a relationship. Why are you in the relationship in the first place? Let's just begin there. So I think the key is in how you approach the relationship. And it begins with your relationship with yourself and recognizing that you're on your mission, that you're on a journey. As a man, there are things you are put here to accomplish and to grow and do during your lifetime. And I think the key is to find a partner who's going to be a complement to you in that journey. Someone who's not going to obstruct you, someone who's not going to distract you, but someone who's going to support you in doing what you need to do. That's going to keep the relationship healthy. It's going to keep you focused, and it's going to keep the love there.
I'm an active service guy too, for my seeing somebody, because when it comes to partnership that Leo was discussing earlier, let's face it, relationships are great, when you're young, but let me tell you something, once the marriage happens and then, the kids come and then the house comes and, you're doing this juggling act, showing somebody willing, being the happy soldier along with you, those acts of service really mean the world, to us men. But I think also while we're discovering not just who we are, we're also having a deep empathy to discover who the person we are with. And maybe what means to us in our love language isn't exactly the same as theirs. My wife, and actually I read this somewhere where the number one thing for men and women, it comes down to is respect.
Yeah.
Like I knew relationships. And the number one thing for women I was surprised was it was non-sexual touching, affection, that connection. And that's something that my wife loves. She loves it when I hold her. She likes a gift now and then too. So, I'm not going to cover up for you, but ultimately that's something I say. But for me, it's definitely that from the framework. All right. Who's your? Oh, you guys.
I got to mention something as we're just sort of going around here and talking. I think the reason that we're here and able to have this discussion is because we're in good relationships now.
Yeah.
We've learned. That's why we're able to be here at this show and talking about because we feel like we've gone through the fire. We know what these relationships like have been historically. We're all in a good place, right? So we're in a good place. So the other thing that I was thinking about too, as we've been discussing here, is I've had some relationship guardian angels. My mom could spot crazy out before I could. She's like, what are you thinking with this woman? And she was always right.
Yeah.
So we have these relationship guardian angels that we should probably listen to more often. And they're typically a parent, right? So with my own kids, I'm like, yeah, that guy, you want to think about that. Or with my son, with now that he's dating, it's about respect, right? No matter what, you got to show respect. So I just felt like I just had to share this because they were really sort of speaking to me. So, and I just want to make sure I wanted to share those statements.
Listening to mom.
Listen to mom.
Mom's advice.
And while we are in wonderful, actually around Tampa, all of us are. Look at that.
Yeah.
Got to come together, man.
We've all matured.
We're finally getting it together, guys.
We finally got there.
It's been a journey.
And you know what? Maybe that's some hope, because people out there listening today, whether you are in a relationship that's a positive, one that you're not so sure about, maybe you're going through divorce, or maybe you're out there seeking love, just know, put yourself out there, walk the fires, be willing to learn. You will get there too. And I think that we're all collectively blessed here in this room for that. But now we get to talk about the harder stuff. This is the could be fun, but also very introspective. And because I think there's a lot of men out there that are listening that are either going through divorce, that are trying to heal themselves after a traumatic breakup, or maybe they're healing from the way they were treated for several years. And we're getting to is the ugly. We're not just good, not the good part, not just, hey, it's a little bad, well, we got to reframe the ship. We're talking explosion. The pain of maybe infidelity, the pain of, maybe not being the person you thought they were going to be. And ultimately, how'd you get through it? How'd you rise up? Or maybe you got so toxic and ugly, but in a way you found your way back home with that person. So I guess the question is, not to put in the spot, but I'm going to. By show of hands, who here may have gone through a divorce by any chance? All right? Okay. Now, without naming names, of course, but of course it's a short list, but does anybody want to chime in and just tell us a story about how you knew it was time to take that step and go for the divorce process? Was it your choice? Was it their choice? What were the feelings that rose up? Because remember, one thing we're big on this show is this. Why are we doing this and putting ourselves out there? Vulnerability is power. Vulnerability is giving other people permission to stand in their own vulnerability. And that's where healing and unlocking occurs. And that's why we're doing these deep dives. So, of course, does anybody want to get deep with us? Maybe share an experience about how they went through that trial.
So I'll jump in on that. So for me, I made the decision to file for a divorce. And it wasn't that one person was right or one person was wrong. It was at a stage where I realized the respect was gone and the respect was never going to be reclaimed. And so the love was basically lost as a result of it. And I felt like it was what was in our best interest. For me, I recognized that I needed to move forward with my life and work on attracting the right partner by working on me and becoming the better version of myself so that I could attract the right person in so that I could have that respect. Because again, once you lose respect, it's going to get ugly. It's a guarantee. And that's ultimately what I think is what changed from where I am now. What I learned along the way was work on me, make me into someone that I want to attract so that I'll get the right partner. And it worked for me.
Yeah. Somebody else have a share?
Yeah, I will say that I have 3 sons. I was very concerned about my marriage and staying in my marriage up until a point when my youngest son was going to be old enough to show his love and take care of his mother. My two eldest sons were well along on their way, and the marriage had broken down. The respect was eliminated. There was no form of mutual appreciation. However, my youngest son needed to be supported properly. And then there came a time when I decided to end the marriage, the relationship. And I knew that by doing that, he would be old enough to not feel enabled by the way in which he felt he was privileged in receiving anything and everything that he wanted in his life. I wanted him to have responsibility for creating his own future, and I wanted him to develop self-discipline. And I thought that by me leaving the relationship, he would find that through the pain of the relationship terminating. It was a very, very difficult decision to make, but I did it for myself and I did it for the kids. They needed to move themselves up to the next level in terms of being responsible for themselves and for their lives.
That's got to be incredibly difficult because when you get into a marriage, it's about also the children, and having 3 children to care about and what's the best interest of them. I could imagine that was a difficult fire to walk across. Was there ever a time of, and this goes related to the divorce or not, where you're in a loving, committed relationship and you go through a hardship? I'll tell you, before we get to that question, we are going to take another commercial break, but hold that thought. We got a lot of good substance coming up after this, after we pay our bills. So we'll see you on the other side of this commercial break.
The Law Office of Bryan Docobo, PA, is a Florida-based legal firm that partners with individuals, investors, and business owners to help them navigate real estate deals, business transactions, and the sale or acquisition of high-value assets like yachts and aircraft. We offer strategic legal support at every stage, whether you're closing on a property, negotiating a merger, or scaling your company. For growing businesses, we also provide fractional general counsel services, giving you executive-level legal guidance without the cost of a full-time in-house attorney. Through our title and closing division, Esquire Closings, we handle real estate transactions across Florida, delivering a smooth, attorney-led experience from contract to close. We're here to make your big moves feel simple, secure, and smart.
At Miller Trial Law, we're more than just a personal injury law firm. We're your advocates during one of the most difficult times in your life. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, a slip and fall, at work, or due to medical malpractice, we're here to stand by your side. We handle the insurance claims and legal process so you can focus on healing. From coordinating your medical care to fighting for the compensation you deserve, we're with you every step of the way. Because your recovery is personal to us. If you've been injured, contact us at 833-MT-LAW for you.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories, struggles, and awakenings that shape us, side by side with men who refuse to settle, who are willing to feel, to lead, and to rise.
We just have a couple more questions here, and we're going to get to really deep substance before we give it a wrap. But I'll say this. Was there ever a time, and just kind of go around the table, where you exited a meaningful relationship and maybe there was a fear that maybe you could never find love again, or maybe there's a fear of you weren't capable of love? Any feelings on that? We'll start with Leland. We'll kind of walk.
Yeah, I think there's definitely always a fear that you may be doing the wrong thing. I think that's where comfort comes in. A lot of people are in relationships because they're comfortable. But if the discomfort during being comfortable is too common or too often, you need to get out. Being with somebody is not about the discomforts and should I move on and should I be looking somewhere else. That should not be involved. So in my past experience, I didn't leave that previous relationship I mentioned of because I was scared of being lonely. But without having been lonely, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to look somewhere else.
That's right. Dennis.
There's not a problem in leaving a relationship, and there's certainly a lot of excitement about looking for new relationships. Even at this stage of life, there are always opportunities, because the relationships that you can create for yourself going forward could be just as wonderful as the relationships that you've experienced in the past. I've never been intimidated by that outcome. I've always looked forward to whatever the universe would provide. And the universe is very generous.
Nice.
Overcome the fear of being alone. You know, it's through that struggle that you grow. We don't grow during easy times. We grow during difficult times and during struggles. Embrace it. Go to the gym, work out, focus on your business, do the things to make you a better man so that you can attract the right woman. Going back to what I said earlier.
Ultimately, you have to be living from a place of high integrity for yourself. And being on both the giving and the receiving ends of breakups, it's really finding the value in yourself, how you treat people and how you let people treat you. So the relationship with yourself is the most relationship of them all. And really harnessing that self-love will allow you to excel in all different aspects.
All outstanding answers from all outstanding men that are part of the Gentleman's Tribe. And here we're at a place where we walk the fire, we face the fire, you know, and we transmute and we evolve. All right. So I would say this through your. It's the last question we have. We're gonna go around the table again, go around the fire view. What is something that you have discovered in yourself from these relationships with women through your life? Just one. There.
I love too much. I give too much love too fast. I think love needs to be earned. Trust needs to be given, and then trust needs to be gotten to a point where you no longer deserve it. So when I trust somebody fully, and from there onwards, it starts decreasing should they do anything. Opposite with me with love. Well, opposite should be with love, that you should love and beat bits and pieces until you fall in love. I go all in with love. And it kind of puts a block onto where do I go next. So I think it's slow down emotion. I'm a very emotional kind of guy, slow down emotion.
So discernment, kind of patience, and kind of
patience. I don't have any of that.
Gotcha.
Honesty comes out.
Yes.
For me, it's generosity of spirit. I am completely gratified when I am able to be generous with myself to the individual with whom I'm involved. And that is all the gratification that I require.
So learning to love myself so that I can understand how to properly love another person and receive love from them.
All amazing answers, and I feel like I can connect with all of those. Opposite of Lior, where Lior loves hard and loves quick.
Yep.
I was the opposite. I was the one that women would have to go through titanium steel of a wall that I put within myself. And even when I knew that they loved me, I still didn't allow that to happen. And I had to go through a fundamental change to understand that it's okay to be loved. And once I started doing that, the world, the universe, my interactions with other people changed for the better. Because it wasn't just in romantic relationships that I was closed off. It was in different types of relationships that I needed to really have that breakthrough. I'll stand up.
I'd say for me, it would be boundaries in a healthy way. Because I used to think of, well, I didn't love fully fast like Lior, I love deep. And I think there's times where you kind of lose sense of where your boundaries are. And the idea of boundaries is scary because are you walling somebody off? That's not necessarily the case. Boundaries are just a healthy way of interacting and giving a dance with somebody. And I think that took me a long time to learn. So now we only have 1 minute left, so we got to keep it short, okay? But if there is somebody out there right now that's going through a difficult relationship, not sure what to do, or somebody going through a divorce, what would be a little bit of advice to give that guy quickly, maybe one sentence, one word, about what they should do in that moment to get through whatever challenge they are facing at the time?
What I refer to all the time is go old school. Pen, paper, pros, cons. What weighs what? That's the truth will come out.
Mr. Feldman.
It's always tomorrow. Just focus on the future.
Find your inner strength. Focus on you.
Trust your nervous system. Don't let your health be compromised.
These are all wonderful answers. And if you're out there and you're going through a tough time, just remember, there's always another day. The world keeps spinning. The sun will keep rising. And what makes you uncomfortable, maybe scared, is going to make you grow. And the day will come to where you will find love, peace, and happiness either with that person or another way, maybe within yourself or another person in your life that maybe you met or have not met yet. And that wraps today's show for the Gentleman's Tribe. We hope you enjoyed, and we're going to tune in next week. We are on the radio on Mondays from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And for the good of the tribe, we love you deeply. You're always welcome to sit at our circle. Take care. Till next time.
That concludes today's episode of the Gentleman's Tribe Show. If you found value in this conversation, we invite you to share it with someone in your circle who's walking this path of growth and leadership. Until next time, stand tall, speak truth, and continue becoming the man you were called to be. We'll see you next week.